oh no, don't look at me, I'm an ugly electric car, nobody wants me. Those times are over. The electric cars now actually are pretty cool, and a lot of them are better than gas cars. They're good looking, they have decent range, they have a better technology, including some of the self-driving technology. So why can we find electric cars at the dealerships near us if all these manufacturers are producing them? Well, the answer is a little bit complicated, and because the manufacturers of this whole process of selling and buying electric cars and cars in general kind of suffers from an old man get off my lawn syndrome, because turning this whole thing around and making motors instead of engines and batteries instead of transmissions, that requires a lot of money, and of course nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to sacrifice their profits, especially nowadays where stock market is pushing everybody to make more and more and billions of dollars and so forth. But there's also another problem, and it is the dealership problem. That is where, as you know, the biggest problem lies, because dealerships make money on, maintenance of the cars, and electric cars are so awesome that you don't really need to maintain most of them, and that's what the problem is. So let's talk about what is the problem in the back end, and can the legacy manufacturers turn things around. However, today I have an awesome guest, Roger Atkins. You've seen him on my show a couple of times before, but today is a special day because we're launching his own segment here on E4Electric. We're calling it Roger That with Roger Atkins. As you know, he joins 3 other regular monthly contributors with Sandy Monroe, the manufacturing guru, Karsten Breitfeld, the CEO of Faraday Future, and Rich Rebuilds, one of the biggest social media influencers in this space. So I'm so excited to have all of them. But today, and by the way, even more reasons to subscribe to this channel. And if you already have, don't forget to click on that subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, so me and Roger. Now, Roger is in London. He lives in Great Britain, but the first segment and the first couple of segments actually we filmed together in person when we were hanging out in Los Angeles. I met him originally in Frankfurt for the Frankfurt Auto Show earlier this year, but in person it's always better. So this is our conversation. This is his opinion. That's always been very interesting and sometimes controversial on what can be done to move this big shift, pretty much 180 for legacy manufacturers started making electric cars, and how countries like China actually are doing a very good job despite being pretty much essentially a communist country where politicians rule the marketing and the economy there. Right before that, of course, quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by Byton. Check out their all-electric SUV that's going to be made in China but also sold in Europe and the United States. If you haven't reserved one, I don't know what you're waiting for. The link is in the description of this video. It takes about 30 seconds of your time. And of course, $0 rubles and euros to get your Byton. So go to that link and reserve your Byton today. Enjoy myself and tens of thousands of other people who've done that already. Okay, without further ado, here's my conversation with Roger Atkins about what can we do about getting these electric cars to the dealerships around us. Here we go. All right, well, welcome to your own segment on my channel. You've been on the channel a couple of times, but I think it's time for you to have your own presence, and I'm really excited.
Thank you. I am. Great to see you, Alex. Yeah. Fantastic.
And we won't always do it in person because we live on 2 different continents.
Yep.
So we'll do it over Skype or whatever. But today, let's talk about, what is happening with the automotive industry. I know you've been really involved, and you have some interesting opinions, as you always do. We got Tesla doing their own thing and dragging everybody into essentially the new generation of cars. But not everyone's on board. So what's going to happen? I mean, is Tesla going to get overpowered by all these legacy manufacturers and an old way of doing stuff in the oil industry? Or do you think they will be successful? And if so, how these humongous legacy manufacturers are going to transition?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's the big question, really, in terms of, how is this all going to come about? And I think, Alex, there's all sorts of signals that we're seeing that are going on. I think some time ago now, there was a moment on stage with Herbert Diess and Elon Musk when they announced the Gigafactory in Germany, in Berlin. That to me felt almost like a pivotal moment where after all this time of Tesla, 13, 14 years ago, it's going to fail. 12 years ago, it's going to fail. 10 years ago, it's going to fail. And clearly it hasn't. And that moment then when Elon Musk is in Germany, the heartland of automotive Europe, and actually is announcing a development in Germany, a big factory. That felt like that was a moment where I'm absolutely convinced now that, you know, Tesla are leading the charge. They are pulling people. Maybe they were dragging and screaming in the past, but they're not now. The majority of them, some still are, to be honest. But yeah, it's well and truly started in a big way, I think.
Well, but you know, there are challenges. Obviously, this legacy manufacturers, people think that all you have to do is just start making good cars.
Yeah.
And they have, as we know, Kia and Hyundai and Ford and so forth. They all have very good electric cars at a decent price. You know, some can say, you know, for people who don't make, you know, as much money as people in Silicon Valley, those cars are more suitable for them. But they can't just do that, right? They can't just switch to electric cars because, you know, they have to work through dealerships and so forth. How do you think this is going to go for them, and what are the challenges, and how in the world they're going to overcome? Because there's some ways they're kind of in a dead end.
Well, they are and they aren't. What they also have got, apart from those legacy things, you could call them negative things, is experience. They've got abilities to, you know, communicate things. They understand supply chain. There's lots of things that they are good at. It's translating those things as they've been into the new stuff. So, you know, something I wanted to just show you was, have you ever read this book, Good to Great? I don't know if, you know, people in the audience have read this book.
Well, put it in the comment section, guys, if you have or have not.
Yeah, because this is something that's been around a while. It's credited by Jeff Bezos as being part of how he pulled his team together back at the kind of early days of Amazon to organize the business and to focus on an objective, keep it simple, have great leadership. So the reason why I'm mentioning it in answer to your question is that I think with a good plan, with the right sort of leadership, with the right understanding of, you know, we are going electric, it can be done, but it's certainly not going to be easy. You know, and being a legacy manufacturer, you've got engine plants, you've got what they call contingent liabilities on the balance sheet. That sounds very kind of complicated, but it basically means you've got a load of people who used to work for you and you have to pay their pension. You know, that's a big thing. So if you're a kind of startup company, or you've only been around like Tesla for a, you know, decade and a bit, you haven't got all those kind of liabilities that these big companies have. So there's no doubt it's going to be difficult for them.
But here's the thing, you know, especially in the United States and around the world, they can't just sell them directly to consumers like Tesla does, so they have to go through dealerships. And that's where the problem begins, right? Dealerships don't want them because they can make money on maintenance, and then why would you even sell this car if you're not going to be able to make money on maintenance? How did they overcome that challenge?
Well, I think, as I recall, part of the Ford launch, part of the Mach-E launch, the discussion in that was about selling direct and selling with dealers. So I think now the legacy automakers are battling and working through this challenge, and obviously they've got to do it in relation to the way in which they work with dealers. You've got to be fair. These are people, in fairness to the dealers, who've invested a lot of money over the years in what they do. But I think the model is shifting now, where you see some manufacturers putting up shops, you know, but like Tesla do, you know, in shopping malls, go where the footfall is, go where most of the people are, and they're blending that into their dealer network. You know, it's not going to be easy, but I think it started. So to answer your question, the challenge really is to help the dealers and reshape what dealers are and turn what's perhaps been, well, what some people will argue is a liability today now, into an asset. To look at the evolution of the whole thing of mobility, whereby if we're going to see driverless vehicle technology, if we're going to see more shared ownership, if we're going to see all these different things, maybe the dealers have got good locations and places and people that can accommodate that stuff. But, you know, not talking about it or not discussing it doesn't make it go away, you know. And what's that old phrase? If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And if you're part of the problem, you're toast.
Yeah, but well, in this case, they're protected by law, right? The dealerships are protected by law, and they just don't see any incentives. They know, I don't really blame them. If they don't have an incentive to make money and you're running a business, you don't want to do it. That's where I don't see how they're going to overcome that. I mean, I have an idea. I think instead of maintenance, they should be selling services, right? Like like Tesla sold $500 million worth of upgrades for their full self-driving package. You can do the same thing with Spotify and so many other digital services, right? But that's just me. That is just my idea. I think about this: Kia, Hyundai, now Ford. Audi, Mercedes coming to the United States with their EQC very soon. They've all produced good cars. But, Kia, Hyundai, Jaguar, not selling. Not selling. And guess why? The brands are pushing it. We've been to their events. They're behind it. We can vouch for them.
Yep.
But dealerships are not selling it. Like, I can tell you, I just contacted a few Jaguar dealerships saying, let me help you sell some in California. Like, you know what I mean? They don't even want to reply to me. The problem is at the dealerships, and what are they going to do?
Well, I think, that it's like all challenges like that. It's like a dam, it builds up, and then it bursts. So what it would look like when it bursts, I to be honest with you, I don't know. But the more that consumers feel confident that the choice of electric vehicles is good, they see one they can afford, charging infrastructure is getting better all the time. When people look at that kind of progress curve, that exponential line of EV adoption, you've got to remember that, it's not just a kind of next year, whatever year, where all the numbers come together. It's building on ever more charging infrastructure. Electrify America, what are they spending? $2 billion building out the network? I think Ford are connecting up with that. All these things are kind of joining up in a way in which, it is going to change, it's going to work.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think you're more optimistic than I am. I think this is where things are really going to get complicated for them. But all right, now let's just one more thing, because we should probably mention, as we're talking about kind of a global revolution here in manufacturing, we cannot mention China, because a lot of people don't know, but China is really becoming a leading sort of country, the leading community in electrification. They have two companies, BYD and Bike, where they sell more electric cars than anybody else in the world, and the rest of the world is not even aware. They're sneaking up on everybody. What are your thoughts on that? How is that going to play out for us?
Wow. It's even more than you've said. I mean, you've alluded to a few companies there, but you've got lots of others. Shanghai Automotive, Chang'an, NIO, a startup. Half of the R&D money going over the next number of years around the world into electrification is in China. $350 billion is going into electrification of vehicles, and half of that goes into China. The Chinese have led the way in having part of their, I think it's called Made in China 2025 strategy, and an government industrial strategy that says we want to be the leaders in this technology. Now, if Europe and America lets them, then that's what will happen. And they have had programs for many years now to develop and incentivize people to buy electric cars, a bit like we've had in America and other places. But it's been very generous, it's been very focused, it's been very well organized. And so the adoption rate's been going up massively in China. More interestingly, and that's been kind of 9 years on the trot, more interestingly, just recently, they've really brought back those incentives. They're stopping them, basically, and they're replacing it with, I suppose you'd call those carrots, they're replacing it with a stick, which is to, in effect, say, you must produce this number of vehicles, manufacturer. It's a mandate. And you kind of think, well, that doesn't make sense. But I kind of think it does, because what it will mean is they're pushing the vehicles out, which means you've got to get more infrastructure. It kind of creates a challenge, and then people have to rise to the challenge. The other bit that the Chinese, I think, can always do, of course, is flex it. If they see that this change of mix between incentives and getting people to make more electric vehicles isn't working, not stupid, they'll sort of tweak it a bit, maybe put some money back into it. Because the fundamental objective is to make China so strong with electric vehicles that they do dominate Europe and America. And, I don't want to be, jingoistic, I just want Britain to be successful, or I just want America to be successful. I want the world to be successful, but we have to get a balance in how that works. You don't want one nation or region being dominant in anything, because it's never a good idea.
Right.
You want choice, flexibility, all that stuff. But, without a doubt, China's absolutely hammering it in terms of EV, and not just four-wheel cars and vans and bus and trucks. To give you an example, in Shenzhen, a big city just over the border from Hong Kong, there are 18,500 electric buses on the road and 30-odd thousand electric taxis. There are no petrol and diesel taxis or buses. How good's that? They're the things that make most of the pollution. And I think in LA recently, a few weeks ago, whenever it was, there was an announcement they're going to buy 150, I think it is, BYD, Chinese, electric buses. And so, you know, this stuff's happening, and the West has got to kind of wake up and catch up with this, because otherwise it's going to be in a strange place. And then, sorry, the other thing I was about to say was two-wheeler electric vehicles. You know, the mobility world isn't just about cars. There are 300 million two-wheeled electric vehicles in China. That's like nearly as many people as in America, Alex.
Yeah.
You know, it's mad.
Well, I think this is a conversation that we're probably going to end up having regularly, because things change really quickly. But I'm definitely curious to see how the next year is going to go, because, you know, everyone almost is part of the game.
Yeah.
And I think we're winning right now. We are as an electric car community. But hey, thanks for joining me and I'm glad to actually start this whole thing in person, because a lot of times we'll be on a different part of the world. But it's great to see you.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Cheers, Alex.
All right, it's great to see Roger in person, and of course, I'm happy to launch his segment on this channel. So definitely don't forget to subscribe. And again, if you already have subscribed, hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. And of course, thank you to all of those of you who watch me live on Patreon. That's pretty much the way I'm able to do this as a full-time job, to bring this to you every day, including weekends. 365 days a year. If you want to join me on Patreon, go to patreon.com/e4electric. That link is also in the description of this video. So is the link to Roger's profile on LinkedIn. He has a huge, probably the biggest LinkedIn audience, which means the entire industry is watching and listening to what he does and says. I would suggest at least follow him, if not friend him on LinkedIn. That link is also in the description of this video. And of course, we are looking forward to your comments and maybe some ideas in the comment section of this video. Other than that, see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.